Today on Homeworthy, we're bringing you to Perry, Georgia, where you'll meet James Farmer, an interior designer and author celebrated for his unapologetically traditional Southern style.
One of the best ways that you can bring personality to a room is to create layers. And here I have layers with different patterns, whether it's the stripe and iCat on the window treatments or the check that I have on the duvets of the bed, but also the trellis and geranium stripe created on the walls. It's kind of a fever dream of a lot of patterns, but it's really fun.
Known for his love of pattern play and gracious living, James's work reflects a timeless elegance shaped by the influence of his mother and grandmother.
One thing I love about this room is the mix of textures and feels. And then you've always got to have something little for the kiddos. And so this chair, it was my sister's and it was our mother's before that, and it's a happy little reminder of the generations before and the generations with us now.
James welcomes us into Farmdale, the charming cottage he built almost 10 years ago in his hometown. Inspired by both the Lowcountry and the North Carolina mountains, the home is surrounded by lush gardens with clipped hedges and flowering borders.
For the most part, I have boxwoods that create the hedging and the anchors, and then pops of color and seasonal attributes. You see the bees buzzing around. I love pollinators. They are so great and so healthy for us. And then I love to interject some of my favorite nostalgic scents. Scent is directly tied to memory, and just the smell of these gardenias, the smell of the roses at the gate, it just takes me right back to childhood.
Inside, the interiors are equally traditional, warm, layered, and distinctly Southern, with every room telling a story of comfort and charm.
This was a console table that I found, and I loved the shape and the style, and the chinoiserie effect is so great. It's wonderful to have an element of black in a room. It really grounds a space, but it makes other colors just kind of pop. It's also very elegant. But then, kind of like salt on a chocolate chip cookie, I mix some other materials. For me, the wicker tables are great.
Throughout his career, James has designed homes across the country and published numerous books on gracious living. His latest, Home Again, A Return to Gracious Interiors, highlights homes he and his team have designed across the South and beyond, showcasing the enduring beauty of traditional style. So join us as James gives Homeworthy a tour of Farmdale, inside and out.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm James. Welcome to Farmdale, my home here in Perry, Georgia.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey y'all, I'm James Farmer. I'm an interior designer and author. Welcome to my home, Farmdale Cottage, here in my hometown, Perry, Georgia. I built Farmdale about 10 years ago, and it's become my family home, not only for my sisters and me, but our extended family, cousins, nieces, and nephews. We love it here. It sits on a piece of family land here in my hometown. It's just a happy place, and it's where we love to be. So architecturally, Farmdale is a raised Southern cottage, but it has a lot of influence from the Lowcountry to South Louisiana, but even a touch of one of my favorite places, the North Carolina mountains. I worked with an incredible architect, Robert Norris with Spitzmiller Norris, and the absolute first inspiration that I showed him was a post office and a general store that sat on my grandfather's land. That, with the Southern architecture and inspiration, was the liftoff for Farmdale, and it became the inspiration for the house itself. So the garden started as soon as the construction of the home started. For me, a garden is just as important as the floor plan, as the materials of building a home. So I implemented some of the fun things like parterres and walls and hedging and trees when I could plant them, and then they have grown over time. Here we are in the entry of my home, which also serves as my living room. What I did for this space was divide it into two seating areas, and the inspiration for this room came from a beautiful screen that I found at an antique shop in Atlanta. The screen is 6 panels total, and I divided it into 2 screens. So that's the artwork that hangs over each sofa, which anchors each sitting area. I love the peaches and the colors that are in the screen. It's salmon and terracotta. And then from there, I worked with different fabrics. I love peach and green, and I love the fabric that I use for the armchairs and window treatments. It brings all the colors together. I wanted this room to also have the inspiration and feel of perhaps a porch or a sunroom that was enclosed at some point. And I've also used this room as a dining room. I think that's what's great about spaces. They don't have to stay put. You can make them into living rooms or to dining rooms, or pop up a table and a tablecloth. Your houses are meant to be homes. They're meant to be lived in and loved and enjoyed. So for me, the inspiration with the screens here, the fabric on the chairs and the window treatments, which brought all the colors into play, and then a great rug of green and white. It's a diamond pattern. Green and white to me is so neutral. It's like nature. It works outside, and it's a great inside as well. So one of my tricks to making things feel more cohesive than chaotic, especially when it comes to pattern play, is interjecting a solid every now and then. Immediately we think about, oh, here's a pattern, but there are actually some solids that ground the room. Whether it's the sofa with a solid green, it is a tone-on-tone damask, so it's a very slight pattern, but overall pretty solid. Or it's the lamps. The lamps are all, they're beautiful, kind of a cream glazeware, so that's solid as well. A solid block with a pillow, and then the wall treatment is a grass cloth. So some of the anchors of the room, the sofas, the grass cloth on the walls, the lighting, that creates some solid points, and then the pillows add a nice touch as well. I love to be unapologetic when mixing styles. Everything doesn't have to be the same time period or the same genre. This was a console table that I found, and I loved the shape and the style, and the chinoiserie effect is so great. It's wonderful to have an element of black in a room. It really grounds a space, but it makes other colors just kind of pop. It's also very elegant. But then, kind of like salt on a chocolate chip cookie, I mix some other materials. For me, the wicker tables are great. They have a glass top, so you can put your drink down there, whether it's the cup of coffee I had this morning or later in the evening, a glass of wine with friends. It's about mixing them, about having form and function, and letting rooms be a place really where you can live. So a mix of high, a mix of low. Perhaps this was a sunroom, perhaps it's turned into a living room. It tells a story. And one way to tell that story are by mixing pieces and different styles of furniture. I have these large windows that flank either side of the front door of my living room, which also serves as my entryway and foyer. I mimic the large windows with large mirrors on either side of the cased opening that heads into the dining room. So the room is filled with light. I love begonias and topiaries, so I have plants at the front window, and that creates a little growing space just for them. The big mirrors, they're the same scale as the windows, so that creates some symmetry and balance there. But also, natural light is so great through the day as it works. But then at night, I love the lamp light as well. I have a firm belief that no good lamp started life as a lamp. And I found these wonderful chinoiserie, Blanc de Chine is the style of them, these big jars, and they were made into lamps. Same thing with the lamps on the other side of the room. They're beautiful creamware vases made into lamps. So it may have been a console table cut down for a coffee table, or a beautiful vase turned into a lamp. Not everything has to start life as you think it would. Console tables can be coffee tables, vases can be lamps, and a living room with great light and windows can also be a sunroom or kind of a mini greenhouse for someone who loves begonias like me. One of my favorite rules to break is by taking a seating area, flanking it with seating, and then bring seating up to a coffee table. What it does is it creates something that you can move around. So if I need to take this stool over to the other side of the room and place it here, I have another place to sit. I have another place where it's a movable chair. It keeps things going. So sometimes the rules that you can break are furniture doesn't always have to sit still. So whether it's pulling up an ottoman or a footstool to a coffee table or a garden stool, I love having things that move around in a room, and it creates a wonderful sense of pattern play as well. I love the cut velvet and the kind of aqua teal striae of these with the loop pile of the wool rug. It's all about the mix and putting it together, and it makes a great effect. A friend of mine in Macon, Georgia is an artist, and she did these botanical prints for me. My room faces out into the woods where I live, and I love seeing the trees and the leaves outside the doors and windows. So she was able to create these wonderful botanical prints for me of actual specimens outside in the garden and in the landscape. I have this firm belief that green and white, it's always right. And so when it comes to art, and sometimes with rugs, I love to use that in a room. And so the green and white of these botanicals of actual leaves and specimens from my yard and from my garden are really fun here in this space. It also helps with that mix. It's something a little unexpected, and it's really fun, and I love the crisp green and white against the kind of creamy peach color of the grass cloth. So one of my favorite features in this room is the brick floor. So when I was building Farmdale, a friend of mine called me and said that there was an older building in a nearby town that had been torn down and the bricks were saved. And I love it because these bricks, well, they're the color of the soil here, that Georgia red clay. And it's a beautiful red, salmon, kind of peach color clay fired into these bricks. So I laid them in a basket weave pattern. And then I also use these bricks outside for my walkway and in my garden. And well, they're indestructible. So whether it's Lila coming in from the garden or whoever else is, a brick floor is so southern and nostalgic. And that was a really fun thing to use as the base layer for the flooring here in the living room. So something I love to do for not only my house, but for my clients is I love to take a lampshade and give it a little bit of elevation. And so you'll see throughout that the lampshades I use, whether it's a silk or a linen or even a plaid, I love a little bit of a tape or some kind of detail to add some color and texture. So I use this really pretty kind of aqua robin's egg blue as the tape for the base and the tops of these silk shades. And what it does is it picks up the color, whether it's from the ottoman or in the inspiration fabric here, and it elevates just a simple lampshade into something very elegant. So my living room transitions into my dining room, and I cased it with a large doorway that's about the same scale as the front door. And what that does is create an enfilade, or a series of cased openings leading into rooms. Above it, I found a pediment from an old house, and it had been stripped, and it was going to be repainted, and then someone decided they didn't need it anymore. I left it just like it is. It's made of heart pine, just like my floors, and it adds a little bit of a rustic element, but also a fun architectural element as well. It was over a doorway in an older home, and I'm so glad that I could repurpose it and use it here at Farmdale. My sense of style, I always say, is unapologetic. It's very Southern and it's very traditional, and I don't apologize for mixing those styles and those genres. Whether it's something that I found or maybe it's a family piece, I always like to say, never apologize for your own style. And for me, that's just a mix of things that I've found. It may be something very traditional or it may be something very contemporary. But I love that mix, and I think that's really the hallmark to Southern style. So I'm often drawn to particular colors. I love peach and salmon, and as my mother called it, coral or coral. Those colors are so warm and welcoming and nostalgic for me, and they look fantastic with green. But I often joke that my favorite color is plaid. I love plaid and I love the geometry of it, but also it just kind of works with florals. So peaches and greens and then the patterns of plaid and simple geometry, to me they work great here at Farmdale and for my clients' homes as well. My mother had a huge influence in me with my approach to design. She always had a beautiful home. She worked with professionals as well, and that was so inspirational for me for a career inspiration. My mother, mama, and my grandmother, my Mimi, they taught me so much about design and about setting a beautiful table and having a welcoming place to call home. So they are always just top billing for inspiration for me. So now we're stepping into the dining room here at Farmdale, and this room is the well of the house. It's the central room and space here, and for me and my family that works so well. It's anchored on one end by a pecky cypress mantle, and the smell of the cypress is just wonderful. It picks up the tones of the honey-toned pine floors, and I left it untreated, so it's in a natural state, but in a little more dressy style of the federal style here of the mantle. Also, I used the same bricks above the fireplace that I used on the floors in the living room, and so that adds some continuity between the two spaces. The table is a racetrack kind of style, big oval table. I love an oval table. It's a little more casual, but it works so well. And then the Chippendale style chairs is a wonderful panel of a Chippendale style, which you also see repeated in the stairwell just beyond. So then with this space being a very high traffic area, I needed something that worked for me, and there's nothing better than a beautiful antique rug. And this Ushak style rug grounds the space. It has all the colors from the living room, from the kitchen, and the garden beyond from this epicenter of the home. Using French antiques, English antiques, and then pops of color really make this space fun, but I grounded it with woodwork and grass cloth and hardwood floors for the architectural elements to be set in place. So a ceiling is the fifth wall in a room. A ceiling is definitely something that needs attention. I always joke that I'm a ceiling fan, and when people don't get it, I just laugh and think I'm not an actual fan spinning on the ceiling. I love ceilings. I love to applaud them. I love to celebrate them. They don't have to just be, a blank space. They can have texture with woodwork, or they can have great beams. And so here the beams are all painted out in one of my favorite colors. It's linen white by Benjamin Moore, and it just is a good neutral color for me. But all of that was inspired by the post office and the general store that was on my grandfather's farm where he grew up. And so that painting is hanging over here on the wall next to the china and linen closet. I can open these up and have dishware and silver and things pulled out to set the table easily, but I'm also reminded of the humble kind of style architecture of that store from my grandfather's family. So it's that mix of the high and the low, the found and the forgotten, and that makes such a fun mix in any room, but I love it especially in a dining room. To me, artwork helps tell the story of a home and your personality as well. So this artwork I found one time at High Point in North Carolina from an artist there who said they were inspired by an English village but used a more contemporary brush stroke, and it's really kind of a close-up into the village but with some vivid color. So this piece with set against the antique brick is a fun contrast. I also love artwork in other forms. Here, these papier-mâché geraniums, they are pieces of art themselves. So art isn't always about a painting or a picture on a wall. It may be the work of art itself, whether it's pottery, woodwork, or in this case, the papier-mâché geraniums. A dinner party here at Farmdale is one of my favorite things to do. My table can comfortably seat 8 people, and that to me is the perfect number for a dinner party. You get to talk to everyone that night. It's close to the kitchen. It's easy to set the table with the cabinets and the closets nearby. And then we usually end up in the living room. And I love a progressive dinner party as well. You have appetizers maybe in the garden, maybe a sip of wine strolling if it's a lovely evening, dinner here at the table, and then I love to take dessert into the living room. It's just kind of fun to keep it progressive and the party moving. A dinner party with about 6 to 8 people is probably one of my favorite kind of nights. One of my favorite pieces of furniture is a bow front chest. To me, they're beautiful in a living room, in a dining room, in a bedroom. They are so universal. So I have a bow front chest here in the stairwell, but it also makes for a great bar or for great serving as well. Another one of my favorite pieces to use is I love a French buffet. And here I have a French fruit wood buffet that is so pretty, but also practical. It is deep enough, so I have lots of storage here. Great drawers for pulling out for silver and serving pieces with a Louis Philippe mirror above. Sometimes antiques really are the best workhorses in a room. They were built for a specific purpose, and that purpose is still great today. So whether it's a French buffet or a bow front chest, I love to use practical pieces, traditional pieces in my home and also for my clients as well. So there's a fun story with the name of Farmdale. When you grow up and your last name is Farmer, I was always the farmer in the dale in our preschool and kindergarten nursery rhymes and singing, and that song, The Farmer in the Dale, kind of stuck with me. But a dale is a beautiful spot within the woods, kind of a natural clearing, and that's where I sited the house. That said, the name Farmdale just kind of stuck in my mind and lived in my imagination from childhood until, well, I guess I'm a grown-up, but it still lives on today, and Farmdale became the name of my house. Hopefully when people enter Farmdale, the feeling that they have is welcome. It's just that, I'm home. For my clients or for my family and friends, I want that feeling of coming home, of being home again, of that place to call home. These are also my book titles. So that's the feeling that I want people to have, is that they're home. You take that deep breath, you feel the doorknob, the warmth there, you smell something cooking in the kitchen. The feeling that I love to create is one that tugs at the heartstrings. So it's hard to say or to put into a tangible means, but it's a feeling nonetheless. And to me, that's the hidden secret to design, is when you do something and you can't just put your finger on it, but your heart knows what it is. So walking from the dining room into the kitchen, just like from the dining room to the living room, they are demarcated by big cased openings. You can have an open floor plan, but you can also have demarcation, and cased openings are a great way to do that. So my dining room flows into the kitchen, where I have another dining area, another little space. This is often where we have breakfast or a smaller dinner party, but I love a round table in this kind of square setting. I also have these cabinets here that give a great place for me to display one of my favorite collections. I love creamware, whether it's tureens or bowls or platters. Creamware and ironstone are so neutral and beautiful, and I love to display them here. The round table, the plaid chairs, is also reminiscent of my grandparents' kitchen. They had chairs that rolled around, a round table at their house, and I remember that growing up, and I wanted to recreate that for my sisters and me here at Farmdale. But also what this space does is it also serves as a landing spot. When I'm coming in from the side and from the garden, it's a great place where I can put down, whether it's groceries or perhaps friends are coming in and we have pimento cheese or cheese straws. It's kind of a place where the party gets started. So for me, your house needs to be a formula that works for you every day, but also a formula that can be used when you're hosting or entertaining. And this spot gives me that. It's another place to serve, but it's another place to sit and eat in case the dining room table is filled with family and friends. One of my favorite details in the kitchen, I love these towers either side of the window. The kitchen also faces the front, and so it's kind of my perch right here. The towers, they frame the window, and I can see the front garden, and I can also see out into the woods. My bird feeder's out there, and it's so fun to watch the birds in the morning. One of the things that I also like to do is mix contemporary with classic. And a good friend of mine, Eleanor Scott Davis, painted this beautiful abstract landscape for me in my favorite colors. I showed her a picture of a field that I had seen in England on a trip a few years ago, and she was inspired by that and created that for me. But what it does is it allows the creamware and even the spines of my cookbook collection to all kind of play together. So this little nook, this little corner is one of my favorite spots in my kitchen. And then opposite the breakfast area, dining area of the kitchen, it's separated by a large island. The island is made, the top of it is Georgia marble. It's quarried up in North Georgia, and it is a classic use and material for the Deep South. One thing I love about it is that it has this muddy veining, and it really tells a story. This is the kind of marble that they would use in old courthouses and banks and older homes in the South, and I love using it. It's still just as durable today. My triangle with the refrigerator and my stovetop and my sink is wonderful right here, but I have to have a window at my kitchen sink, mainly for rooting, whether it's basil or I'm crazy about begonias, but another spot to look out and see the yard and garden right there. So my kitchen, my little corner right here where I like to work, where I like to cook and entertain is great, but I'm saved by my pantry. My pantry is where I have the additional oven and the ice maker and more storage. So it allows me to keep this area a little tidier and a little tighter, but I've got the back kitchen and pantry there that saves the day. So your cabinetry doesn't always have to be the same color. And for me, I love to use a classic white. In this case, it's Benjamin Moore linen white. I used it on the ceiling, the trim, the walls, and the perimeter cabinets. But on each material, it reads a little bit differently. But for the island, I used another favorite color. It's called Creekside Green. It's this wonderful kind of mossy green. It looks a little blue in some lights in the wintertime, and then in the summertime it has this great kind of sage green hue to it. So an island, being an island, it can be its own color. It can be its own material. And then lastly, since I used marble or stone here on the island, I've used walnut for the perimeter countertops. And walnut is a wonderful choice for perimeter countertops or butcher block countertops. And I love the classic feel with the bend pulls of the brass and the linen white cabinets. It reminds me of, well, the Farmdale inspiration. It reminds me of a country store, but a little bit elevated. And it's great for here for every day, and it looks good yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Probably one of my favorite rooms in my home is my pantry. My pantry really saves the day because being a secondary kitchen, it allows for me to have another sink, my ice maker, additional oven, even more trash can and storage space. What that does, it allows for the kitchen to be a kitchen. But when I'm entertaining, or perhaps I just need to have my own cup of coffee in a quiet space, this becomes a little cocoon, a fun little jewel box for myself. The window looks out into my kitchen garden, and it creates a little happy space for me to start the day. I love my, what I call farmer's kitchen. I don't have a butler, so it's not a butler's pantry, it's a farmer's kitchen. That said, it's also a place where I display things, artwork for my nieces and nephews, my great aunt's china here on the wall, and a small scale pattern from GP&J Baker also on the walls that are repeated in the paint technique on the floor. And then behind another door is where food storage and everything is there. But this pantry allows me to have a space for additional appliances, additional sink, but it's a happy little spot just for me as well. So since the pantry also doubles as a bar, it's a great place where I can store some glasses or coffee mugs. And then some of my favorite everyday here, I love these wicker wrap glasses. The ice maker's right here. So often I put my guests right to work. I'll say the glassware's in there, there's the ice maker, make yourself at home or help me set the table. The cabinets help hide some of that, but also it's real handy right here off the kitchen and dining room. One of the things I love most about my home is that my home and my garden, they're a symbiotic relationship. To me, they both survive with one another. So each season offers something great. So I love how the views from the garden in spring and summer are so lush. But then in the wintertime, I love the outdoor fireplace under the cabana. So for me, the home and the garden, it's hard to separate the two. And I think that's my favorite aspect of the home. All right, stepping into the garden, which might be my favorite room here in the house. So the garden here at Farmdale is an extension of my living room. It's an extension of my dining room. My sister was married here in the garden. I host dinner parties and receptions here. It's just my favorite spot and extension of the home. I have a beautiful set of parterres that I've anchored with loquat trees, a fountain in the back, and then 2 pigeonniers that create great storage for out of season material and garden tools. So follow me through the garden. I'll show you some of my favorite plants right this way. Whether it's the steeple that anchors the bed over here. The steeple here I found from an old church, and it's now the center point here in the garden. I love green and white. It's always right in a garden, and even on a hot day, it's visually cool. So white impatiens, lamb's ear, vinca, and a little pop of blue salvia makes for a great, cool summertime color palette here in the garden. The mixture of architecture with the steeple, the painted brick walls, the trees, lots of different layers here in the garden. I think it's so important to engage the senses in the garden. Not only do you want to see beautiful things, but you hear the water from the fountain, the crunch of the gravel underfoot, but also the scents, whether it's herbs and floral scent like gardenia. I love engaging the senses, the feel of the fabric on the outdoor furniture or even the fuzzy lamb's ear. To me, the garden is a place where all the senses come alive, and it's a true extension of the home. Tried and true perennials, a little bit of color here makes for a great centerpiece in the garden. The fruit trees create a little bit of a canopy, And it's just a really wonderful spot. I've had parties here, receptions, champagne toast, and even a wedding. It's a great spot and definitely a favorite part of the home. It's always so great to have architecture in the landscape. So for me, I did that by creating architectural layers, the painted brick walls of the parterre beds, the pigeonniers and the wall fountain and the rear lawn. What those do is it creates layers and it creates architectural elements, and the plants, they're the icing on the cake. For the most part, I have boxwoods that create the hedging and the anchors, and then pops of color and seasonal attributes. You see the bees buzzing around. I love pollinators. They are so great and so healthy for us. And then I love to interject some of my favorite nostalgic scents. Scent is directly tied to memory, and just the smell of these gardenias, the smell of the roses at the gate, it just takes me right back to childhood. So as you walk through the garden, it takes you onto the pool and the cabana, which is a great spot, especially on these hot summer days. We love the pool and the cabana because it's a great spot to exercise, to play, swim, but also an extension of the dining room as well. Let's go check out the cabana. So coming through the garden here at the side lawn, I love having the axis of an urn filled with Chinese fan palm and euphorbia on axis with the gate and the pigeonniers just beyond. This green space, it becomes a great football and soccer field as well, but visually, it's a great spot between the garden and the pool. It's a wonderful connection or a hybrid space for visually a little bit of rest, but then it has an English garden feel around with planted perennial borders and also herbs that I love to cook with, especially during the summer season. The cabana is the end point to the pool, and that's where I love to sit and entertain on summer nights, but also the outdoor fireplace is where we love to entertain even in the wintertime as well. It's multi-seasonal and multi-use. So the side lawn then connects, it's like a hallway to the cabana and then to the front. The garden truly is an extension of my home, and my favorite plants and perennials are here, but also with touches of outdoor comforts such as seating and dining, and my favorite colors of kind of cantaloupe, peachy melon, and dark green wicker. The cabana has one of my all-time favorite fabrics from Peter Dunham under it. It's a fig leaf pattern. I'll show you that here under the cabana. When you are decorating outside, I know that sounds strange to decorate outside, but outdoor materials and outdoor furnishings have come so far. So something that I absolutely love is to take a fabric and a pattern and apply them with outdoor materials. So I have a wonderful chocolate brown Greek key from Schumacher and a perennials, this color, it's just a perfect peachy coral, and then mixed with the Peter Dunham fig leaf. This fig leaf pattern, we use it on linen inside for our clients, but here we have it as an outdoor material, and it's perfect under here, under this cabana. One of my favorite memories of growing up, there was a big fig tree at my grandparents' house, and the smell of the fig leaves and just the shape of them was so beautiful. So I wanted a nostalgic, kind of sentimental touch for the cabana, and this pattern was that. The peach, the green, the chocolate brown, it kind of is reminiscent of my shutters and my doors and the house at Farmdale. So it's creating some cadence and some continuity. And the cabana, well, as you can see, we love to live out here. It's Lila's favorite perch right there because it's nice and cool, but in the wintertime, the fire is awesome from s'mores. It's a really fun spot for me and my family. I love to repeat things because it creates a little bit of pattern and cadence and design. So mirrors are awesome to use outside. People think that mirrors are only for inside, but they are great for outside decor as well. So I have these zinc French dormer windows that I put mirror glass in, and they reflect the garden in the back and under the cabana as well. Lush plantings of fatsia and palm kind of add to the subtropical feel that we have here in the deep south. But a cabana is just like any other room in your house, and you can outfit it accordingly. My friend Brandon Ingram drew the cabana for me, and it is the end point to the pool. So when you're standing or sitting under the cabana, you can look out down the long pool axis, which runs parallel with the side yard. So a side yard like that is kind of like a corridor connecting the different outdoor rooms. In this case, it connects the garden to the cabana. And then the pool is visually cooling as well, but I can rest assured we love to jump in each and every day. So my cabana really and truly is my outdoor living room. It's where we love to entertain, from birthday parties to dinner parties. This happens to be one of my favorite spots. I converted lanterns into these lamps that are on either side of the sofas. The dark green wicker mixed with the whitewashed teak, the bluestone on the floor, faux bois for coffee tables. It's an unapologetic mix of some of my favorite materials under the cabana. And this spot right here, this is where you'll find me just about the beginning of every day and the end of every day. This is my perch. Right here is where I love my coffee or nightcap to rest and celebrate the day, or to start the day in good fashion. I'm one of those folks that I've always known what I wanted to do. I wanted to create and I wanted to work with beautiful things. And when I was a little kid, I remember my mother hiring a decorator from Atlanta. And that was so amazing to me that someone could come from out of town and make our home look beautiful. That said, I started my little career, honestly, when I was a kid. I would pot geraniums for my mother's friends. And then when I got to college, I went to Auburn University, where I studied design there. So that was very influential as well, that I was in classes and learning about the history of design and how to sketch, but also the appreciation for the past. And so there at Auburn is where I had the idea for my first book. And I thought, you know what, maybe one day I could write a book, maybe it's a series, and that would become a part of not only what I do, but it could also be a part of my business. So if you can't hire a designer, maybe you buy their book and that can inspire you. So that became the kind of the epicenter there and the benchmark for the books. Now the new book is coming out and we are so excited about it. And one of my favorite things is that my home is the cover, and I love to practice what I preach. And so that said, is being an author and an interior designer, I've kind of always known what I wanted to do. There are always challenges when it comes to interior design. One of my favorite kind of stumped moments was one time when we had some very, very tall ceilings in an older home. And what we were able to do was to create a sense of layer with drapery and with larger scale lighting. So to me, sometimes the stump or sometimes the challenge that comes into play with design, you have to think about the volume and not just what's on the floor. You have to think about from the windows, you have to think about the lighting, and how do you integrate those layers and spaces. But to me, once you get the scale right, it kind of follows some form and formula for sure. So connecting the house to what I call the Waller room, which is our casual den. The Waller room is because that's where we sit and we waller and watch TV. But to connect that space to the other spaces of the home, I enclosed a back porch, or at least that's the story I wanted it to tell. So as you come through the dining room and the stairwell, you come to the back hallway. The floors and the walls are all brick, the same brick that I used in the entryway. And it's that reclaimed brick that gives it a sense of age and story and history. So then this back hallway comes in and it takes you through a view to the garden and to the Waller room beyond, which is where the casual living space of the house is. It becomes a home gym. It's where the kiddos love to pile in and watch a movie. Or if I'm on a crown or binge watch of Downton Abbey again, that's where all that happens, right there in the Waller room. A hallway is one of my favorite rooms to decorate because it's still a room. A lot of people think it's just where you go from point A to point B, from room to room. But a hallway, no matter how long or how narrow it is, it's still a room. And by the time you add up that width and that length, it really has serious square footage. So hallways always need great light, great texture. And my back hallway here at Farmdale, on one side is completely glassed in, so it has a view to the garden. And then I repeated it with a large mirror that reflects the view to the garden. Lamplight and lanterns create wonderful light as well. And then my artwork in here is just a whole gallery and collection of things, whether it was things that were my parents or contemporary pieces mixed with old pieces. This is a fun spot. It becomes a gallery, and hallways are great galleries, great places to display art and antiques in your home. Coming in from the back hallway, it leads to the Waller room, or our den here at Farmdale. The Waller room is where we just love to sit and waller and watch TV or play games. It becomes a makeshift home gym as well. It's a multi-purpose room. I have a large storage closet and bathroom off of it as well. And so it also becomes a great place for guests if I need to fill up the guest rooms and fill up the sofas. But this room is kind of like a greenhouse. It has light coming in from all four sides, and it becomes a great place for great light, and it's a happy spot, a mixture of materials and textures, from the grass cloth on the walls to the chintz on the windows and the cut velvet of the upholstery. One thing I love about this room is the mix of textures and feels. And then you've always got to have something little for the kiddos. And so this chair, it was my sister's and it was our mother's before that, and it's a happy little reminder of the generations before and the generations with us now. So the Waller room is this place where I love to hang out, binge watch TV, and chill after a long day. It's a great spot for a weekend nap as well. One of the things I love to create for my clients, but I also practice for myself, is I love a family console of all the generations, all the frame photos. Put them all together here. It works on a piano, it works on a console table. It kind of creates what's often traditional, like a family altar in a sense, a place where you can revere and reflect those who are no longer with us, but also those who are with us today. My nieces and nephews love to come over, and they love to ask questions about who it is, and it allows me to tell the story of our family. So they're all concentrated here, all sorts of different frames. It makes a really fun mix, but it becomes one of those places where stories come alive through the faces that you see here in these frames, all concentrated here on the console. So one of my favorite things to do is to take a piece that may or may not have been used somewhere else and unexpectedly give it new life. In this case, it's a buffet decor. Buffet here, and then decor, or two-bodied piece. Sometimes when you just say it in French, it sounds better. But this buffet decor was probably used in a dining or a kitchen space originally, with its open front here, and it was used for storage. The southern term for it may have been a pie safe. So here I have it in the Waller room, and it has this wonderful original patina and color, and I use it to display some of my favorite things. I have books and I have games in here, but I also have some of my favorite fish plates. I know that sounds funny, but I collect fish plates. They're beautiful and they are hand painted, and I get to display them up here with some other treasures as well. So the buffet decor anchors one room of the Waller room, and the blue, gray, green patina of it was inspiration for the color scheme in the room. I have a mix of materials in here in the Waller room. So I have a chintz, which is more of a polished cotton on the windows, and I love the visual feel of that. But for me, velvet, this one is channel quilted. Velvet just lasts, and it is a workhorse fabric, and these sofas have seen it all, and they'll continue to look good and for another few years. And then I also like to integrate indoor-outdoor material. This is a performance fabric here. So this texture of the velvet, the performance, the polished cotton there is visually appealing, but it's also very functional as well. It's durable and it works. Trust me, when my nieces and nephews are here, these aren't on the sofa. We're building a fort with them on the floor. But it also is kind of a reinterpretation of the walls, painted woodwork, grass cloth, and rafters above. So it's mixing textures and techniques in a room that really adds a lot of character and personality to a space. I think one of the best compliments that someone can give me or can give anyone about their home is that they just feel welcomed. They feel themselves and they feel confident that they're comfortable here. I love that. Nothing is off limits. It is not a museum, it's a home. And to me, that's the difference between a house and a home. A house, it's an architectural structure, but a home, that's where the heartstrings and the feelings come into play. And that to me is the best compliment, that someone feels confident and comfortable in my home. If you're looking or trying to find your own sense of style, one of the first things to do is to look through old books and magazines. I know it's so easy to scroll these days, but classics, they stand alone. They are incredible, and traditional style just kind of makes it great. So find a formula that works for you. If it's a cheetah print, a floral, and a stripe, it looks great all the time, but maybe you add a pop of contemporary art. I love traditional with a twist. And so to me, using that baseline of traditional design. It's a great way to find your style, and then you can bend the rules a little bit to make it very personal. One of the guest rooms here at Farmdale is set up with family in mind. My nieces and nephews love to pile in here, so for the artwork, I framed artwork that they have created for me. And they love it. They love seeing little things they've done at school or for craft projects. But I also have other family pieces in here as well. I have photographs of my grandparents, of my mother, also mixed with contemporary art. My dear friend Eliza Price painted my garden that I have in the mountains. And so I have a little bit of cachers right here in Perry, here at Farmdale. But the kids love this room. And so I used a green and white motif, and my friend Luli Wallace was able to create a geranium wallpaper in one of my signature shades of coral or salmon coral that I love so much. So this room, it's happy. It has light from 2 different sides, faces out to the pool, and it becomes a room that the kids love to play, but also when they get to spend the night with Uncle Brubs, they feel right and happy here in this space. One of the best ways that you can bring personality to a room is to create layers. And here I have layers with different patterns, whether it's the stripe and iCat on the window treatments or the check that I have on the duvets of the bed, but also the trellis and geranium stripe created on the walls. It's kind of a fever dream of a lot of patterns, but it's really fun. But to me, what makes it work is that it's really not too many colors. It's green, it's cream, and it's peach. And then those colors are used over and over on the windows and then on the walls and on the beds themselves. And then I also love a touch of nostalgia as well. So I have baby cups from us from when we were born, a picture of my mother when she was in a beauty pageant, and that adds those layers of nostalgia with the layers and patterns. So when the kiddos come to stay with me, one of the things we love to do is we love to read bedtime stories, and here's where we sit and we read, but they're surrounded by their artwork and artwork from other friends and family. And then it's the twin beds. They love it. I can even pull out another mattress that I keep under the beds, and it's like camp. They love it, and this kind of becomes their bunk. So this is a sweet little moment here with this box bay. My architect drew in these great shelves around so I can store memorabilia and books and other little pieces of art. And it's a fun little moment in this space, and the kiddos love it. And quite frankly, I do too. Here in the other guest room at Farmdale, the view is all about the garden. And so one of my all-time favorite fabrics is the classic from Lee Joffa, and it's hollyhock, but it's in the citrine colorway. That citrine really is kind of a fun color that I contrasted with aqua, which is used in the raffia grass cloth as well. So the window treatment frames the window looking out into the garden, and then I brought the garden into the guest room, repeated it with the shams and the euros here on the bed, and artwork as well. These were my grandmother's prints, a wonderful piece of artwork that I found at an antique store in North Carolina, and then the raffia grass cloth just kind of envelops this room with its garden view, and it creates a coveted guest room here at Farmdale. So since the guests who stay with me are usually our close family and friends, I love to have pieces of nostalgia. The plates are beautiful fern Limoges plates that were my great aunts from Bainbridge, and I displayed them on the wall here. I love the ferns, and they're reminiscent of the ferns just outside in the garden. And then I also have photographs of my great aunt and uncle and my grandparents, and those are just fun reminders when I have cousins or my sisters coming to stay. We all love this room because it's very nostalgic, but it also has a great view to the garden. What the word home means to me, it's the layered answer. But that said, it's where the feelings and emotions and the heartstrings interplay with all the senses. So it's not only visually nice to look at, but the senses are evoked. There's a delightful aroma. There's the feel of what your favorite fabric is like. It's the sound of perhaps whether it's music or birds in the garden or a water fountain. Each sense is engaged. So home to me is where all the senses are engaged, but you feel so comfortable and relaxed, and it's the place where you long to be. Okay, Homeworthy, thanks y'all so much for visiting with me at Farmdale. You're welcome back anytime, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.